I've chosen a topic today that I truly believe could be a turning point for your health, and frankly, it contains information you rarely hear in a standard doctor's visit. We need to understand a critical concept called sarcopenia. I'm going to explain exactly what that is and connect the dots between your grip strength, your body balance, your independence, and yes, even your mortality risk. I'll also show you exactly how to test and improve your grip at home. But before we dive in, I have a small request. My mission is to ensure you have a wonderful, healthy life as you age. So please, subscribe to the channel and like this video right now. Let's make the world a healthier place together. I also want to build a great community here, so please share your thoughts in the comments I read and reply to them personally. I care deeply about your health, and I need your help to make my voice heard by more people like you. Now, let's get started. Let me start with something that probably happened to you recently, and you didn't think twice about it. Maybe you struggled to open a jar of pickles, or you noticed that carrying grocery bags from the car felt heavier than it used to. Perhaps you shook someone's hand and realized yours felt weaker somehow, less firm. And you probably thought if you thought about it at all, well, that's just getting older. That's normal, nothing to worry about. I want to talk to you today about why that dismissal, that quick brushing aside, might be one of the most important health signals you're overlooking. I've been practicing internal medicine for over 30 years now. I've specialized in geriatrics, in age-related muscle disorders, and I've taught medical students and residents at the university level for most of that time. And I want to share something with you that I wish more of my colleagues would explain to their patients directly. Your grip strength, that simple thing, how hard you can squeeze, it's not just about opening jars or carrying bags. It's actually one of the most reliable windows we have into your overall health trajectory, into how you're likely to age, into, frankly, how long you're likely to live. That sounds dramatic, I know, and I'm not trying to alarm you, but here's what I've learned over 3 decades. The quiet signals are often the ones that matter most. And weak grip strength after 60 is exactly that kind of signal. There are things I'll explain today that your doctor probably hasn't mentioned. Not because they're hiding anything, but because there's never enough time in a 15-minute appointment, and grip strength doesn't have a pharmaceutical solution, so it doesn't get the attention it deserves. I'll tell you about sarcopenia, a word you may never have heard, but a condition that affects millions of older Americans and predicts falls, hospitalizations, loss of independence, and yes, mortality. I'll share stories from patients I've followed for years, watched decline, and watched recover. And I'll give you 3 simple things you can do at home starting today that actually make a difference. But first, let me explain what we're really talking about when we talk about grip strength. When I have a patient squeeze a dynamometer, that's just a handheld device that measures force. I'm not just measuring their hand. I'm getting a snapshot of their entire neuromuscular system. Think about what has to work for you to grip something firmly. Your brain has to send signals down through your spinal cord, out through peripheral nerves, into the muscles of your forearm and hand. Those muscles have to contract. The tendons have to transmit that force. Your bones have to provide stable anchors. Your circulatory system has to deliver oxygen and nutrients to keep everything functioning. Grip strength integrates all of that. It's like a summary score, a readout of how well multiple systems are working together. And here's what decades of research have shown us consistently across different populations and countries. Grip strength correlates remarkably well with overall muscle mass and quality throughout the body. It correlates with walking speed, with balance, with the ability to rise from a chair without using your arms, with bone density, with cognitive function, yes, cognitive function, and with survival. When I first learned this as a younger physician, I was skeptical. How could something so simple tell us so much? But the data has been replicated so many times now in so many large studies that there's really no question anymore. Weak grip strength in older adults is associated with higher rates of cardiovascular disease, higher rates of disability, longer hospital stays when people do get admitted, greater likelihood of nursing home placement, and increased all-cause mortality. All-cause mortality, that means dying from anything: heart disease, cancer, respiratory illness, falls, infections. Weak grip doesn't cause these things directly, but it marks something. It's a signal that the body is losing its reserve, its resilience. Let me introduce you to a word that should be as familiar as osteoporosis, but somehow isn't: sarcopenia. Sarcopenia comes from Greek sarx, meaning flesh, and penia meaning loss. It literally means loss of flesh, loss of muscle. Now, some muscle loss with age is normal. We call that age-related muscle decline, and it starts surprisingly early in your 30s, actually. Most people lose about 3 to 5% of their muscle mass per decade after 30. It's gradual. You don't notice it. But sarcopenia is something more than normal aging. It's accelerated loss of muscle mass and, critically, muscle function. It's when the decline becomes clinically significant, when it starts affecting your ability to do things, when it puts you at risk. And here's what I want you to understand. Sarcopenia often becomes severe after 60. The rate of muscle loss tends to accelerate. What was 3% per decade can become 3% per year, sometimes more. Why? Several reasons. Hormonal changes: testosterone and estrogen and growth hormone all decline. Physical activity tends to decrease. Protein intake often drops because appetite changes. Chronic inflammation, which increases with age, actually interferes with muscle protein synthesis. Certain medications can contribute. Diseases accumulate. It's a perfect storm, really. And it happens quietly. You don't feel your muscles shrinking. You just notice, gradually, that things are harder, that you're more tired, that you avoid certain activities because they've become uncomfortable or exhausting. I had a patient, I'll call her Margaret, who came to see me at 67. She was concerned about her balance. She'd had a near fall in her kitchen, caught herself on the counter, and it scared her. When I examined her, her grip strength was significantly below normal for her age and sex. Her walking speed was slow. She couldn't rise from a chair without pushing off with her arms. Margaret had sarcopenia. She'd had it for years, probably. But no one had named it. No one had explained what was happening or what she could do about it. This is far more common than people realize. Some estimates suggest that 15 to 30% of adults over 65 have sarcopenia. Among those over 80, it may be 50% or more, and yet most of these people have never heard the word. Let me tell you about Harold, 73 years old, retired engineer, sharp mind, careful person, not the type to take unnecessary risks. He came to me after a fall in his backyard. He'd been walking to check on his tomato plants, stepped wrong somehow, and went down. Harold hadn't broken anything, fortunately, but he was shaken. And when I evaluated him, the picture became clear. His grip strength was in the lowest quartile for his age group. His leg strength was compromised. His balance was impaired, not dramatically, but enough. What Harold didn't understand, what many people don't understand, is that falls aren't accidents, or rather, they're not random accidents. Falls happen when the body's ability to respond to challenges falls below what's required to maintain stability. When you trip or slip, your body has a fraction of a second to react. Your muscles have to fire rapidly to catch you. Your core has to stabilize. Your arms might reach out. If those systems are strong and fast, you recover. If they're weak and slow, you fall. And falls are not minor events after 60. I've lost track of how many patients I've seen whose lives changed completely after a single fall. Hip fractures, head injuries, loss of confidence that keeps them homebound, pneumonia from being bedbound, deconditioning that never fully reverses. I'm not saying this to frighten you. I'm saying it because understanding the mechanism changes how you think about prevention. Harold and I talked about what was happening in his body, about sarcopenia, about grip strength as a marker, about the connection between muscle mass and fall risk, and then we talked about what he could do. This is the part that's hardest to talk about, but I think it's important to be direct. There's been extensive research. I'm talking about large prospective studies following thousands of people over many years, showing that grip strength in older adults predicts mortality, not just from accidents or falls, but from all causes. One way to think about it: grip strength is a proxy for biological age. Two people can be the same chronological age, say 68, but have very different biological ages. One might have the muscle mass and function of a healthy 55-year-old. Another might have the profile of someone in their late 70s. Grip strength helps us see that difference. And biological age, as you might expect, predicts health outcomes better than the number of candles on your birthday cake. When I review the data with medical students, they're often surprised. They expect cardiac markers or blood tests to be the best predictors. And those matter, certainly, but grip strength holds up remarkably well, even when you control for other factors, even when you account for existing diseases, smoking history, body mass index. There's something about maintaining muscle strength that reflects and perhaps supports overall physiological resilience. I want to be careful here. I'm not saying that weak grip strength causes earlier death. Correlation isn't causation, as they say. But I am saying that weak grip strength marks something important about how the body is aging, and unlike many markers, it's something you can actually influence. This is a fair question, and I've thought about it a lot. Part of the answer is that medicine tends to focus on diseases that have clear pharmaceutical interventions. Sarcopenia doesn't have a pill, though believe me, pharmaceutical companies have tried. There's no lucrative market in telling people to exercise and eat protein. Part of it is time constraints. Your doctor has maybe 10 or 15 minutes with you. They're managing medications, reviewing lab work, addressing your immediate concerns, screening for sarcopenia, explaining it, counseling you on prevention that takes time that's rarely available. And part of it, honestly, is cultural. We've accepted muscle loss as inevitable, as just what happens, as not medically important. I remember being trained this way myself, decades ago. We didn't have the term sarcopenia when I started medical school. Weakness in elderly patients was just too expected. We didn't think of it as a modifiable risk factor. That's changed, at least in the research literature. But translating research into practice takes years, decades sometimes. And meanwhile, millions of older adults are declining in ways that could potentially be slowed or partially prevented. Let me tell you about Robert. I followed Robert for almost 20 years. He came to me in his early 60s, hypertension, early diabetes, typical stuff, intelligent man, retired from banking, interested in his health, but not obsessive about it. Around 65, I started noticing things. His walking had slowed. He complained of fatigue. His grip strength, which I'd started measuring routinely by then, was declining year over year. I talked to him about resistance training, about protein intake, about staying active. Robert listened. He nodded. But he didn't really change anything. He was busy with grandchildren, with traveling, with retirement. Exercise felt like something for younger people or for people who were really sick. By 72, Robert had had 2 falls. He'd recovered from both, but his confidence was shaken. He was avoiding stairs, limiting his outings. His world was shrinking. At 75, he was hospitalized for pneumonia. He spent 12 days in the hospital, much of it in bed, and what I saw when he was discharged was a different person. The deconditioning from that hospital stay accelerated everything. His strength was gone. His independence was gone. Robert spent his final years in assisted living, then skilled nursing. He passed at 78. I'm not telling you this story to blame Robert or to suggest that exercise would have prevented everything. He had real medical problems. Aging happens to all of us. But I do think about whether things might have unfolded differently if he'd taken those early signals more seriously. If weak grip strength at 65 had been a wake-up call rather than something to dismiss. Here's what I want you to understand. Muscle isn't just about strength or appearance. Muscle is metabolically active tissue that plays crucial roles in health. Muscle helps regulate blood sugar. It stores amino acids that your body needs during illness or stress. It produces myokines, signaling molecules that affect inflammation, brain health, and immune function. Strong muscles support your skeleton and protect your joints. They give you the reserve capacity to survive illness and recover from injuries. When you have robust muscle mass, you have what we call physiological reserve. When something goes wrong, an infection, a surgery, an accident, your body has resources to draw on. You can tolerate the stress and bounce back. When you've lost significant muscle, that reserve is diminished. Every challenge becomes more dangerous. Every illness is harder to survive. Every period of bed rest accelerates the decline. This is why grip strength predicts hospitalization outcomes. Patients with stronger grip strength going into the hospital tend to have shorter stays and better recoveries. The muscle itself is protective. Okay, I've talked a lot about the problem. Let me talk about what you can do. First, I want to be clear. I'm not promising miracles. You cannot completely prevent age-related muscle loss. You cannot turn back the clock to 25. Anyone selling you that story is not being honest. But you can absolutely influence the trajectory. You can slow the decline. You can maintain function longer. You can improve your reserve capacity and reduce your risk. And grip strength, specifically because it's trainable. The muscles of the hand and forearm respond to use, just like any other muscles. Here are 3 things I recommend to patients. They're simple. They don't require a gym or expensive equipment. They're safe for most adults over 60, though as always, if you have specific medical conditions or concerns, check with your doctor. Find a tennis ball, a stress ball, or simply roll up a hand towel. Several times a day, squeeze it firmly in one hand, hold for 5 to 10 seconds, then release. Do this 10 to 15 times, then switch hands. This sounds almost too simple to matter, but the research on grip training is actually quite good. Regular squeezing exercises improve grip strength measurably over weeks to months. And because grip strength correlates with overall function, there's reason to believe this has broader benefits. I tell patients to keep a ball by their chair where they watch television. During commercial breaks, squeeze. It becomes automatic. It takes no extra time out of your day. This one requires a bit more space, but is still very doable. Get 2 objects with handles that have some weight. These could be gallon water jugs, shopping bags with canned goods, light dumbbells if you have them. Hold one in each hand and walk across your house or apartment, maybe 30 or 40 feet. Turn around and walk back. Rest and repeat. This is called a farmer's walk or farmer's carry. It trains grip strength because you're holding weight continuously. But it also trains core stability, leg strength, and balance. It's functional in the truest sense. It mimics what you do when you carry groceries. Start with lighter weights and see how you feel. The goal is to challenge yourself mildly, not to strain. Over time, as it becomes easier, you can gradually increase the weight or the distance. For this, you can use a very light dumbbell. Even 2 or 3 pounds is fine to start, or a can of soup, or a filled water bottle. Sit in a chair with your forearm resting on your thigh, palm facing up, holding the weight. Slowly curl your wrist upward, lifting the weight toward the ceiling. Lower slowly. Do 10 to 15 repetitions. Then flip your arm so your palm faces down, and do the same motion in reverse, lifting the back of your hand toward the ceiling. This works the muscles on the other side of your forearm. This exercise targets the specific muscles that generate grip force. It also helps with things like wrist stability and fine motor control. Here's something I emphasize with patients, because it goes against what our culture often teaches about exercise. Consistency matters far more than intensity. You do not need to exhaust yourself. You do not need to feel sore the next day. You do not need to push to failure or set personal records. In fact, for older adults, pushing too hard often backfires. It leads to injuries, to burnout, to giving up. What works is doing something regularly. Daily is ideal. 3 or 4 times a week is still beneficial. The key is making it sustainable, making it part of your routine, making it something you'll actually keep doing for months and years. A patient of mine, I'll call her Dorothy, started doing grip exercises at 64 after I explained all of this to her. She wasn't particularly athletic. She didn't enjoy traditional exercise, but she kept a stress ball by her reading chair and squeezed it while she read, every day, without fail. When I retested her grip strength 6 months later, it had improved by about 15%. That's meaningful. That's moving from one risk category to another. And Dorothy noticed functional improvements too. Jars were easier. Her garden work felt more manageable. She felt more confident. Small actions, done consistently, compound over time. I've focused on grip specifically because that's the topic today. But I'd be doing you a disservice if I didn't mention that grip strength is part of a larger picture. The muscles of your whole body need attention as we age. Your legs, especially because leg strength is what keeps you walking, climbing stairs, getting up from chairs, staying upright when you trip. Your core, because it stabilizes everything. Your back and shoulders. Resistance training, meaning exercises where your muscles work against some form of resistance, whether that's weights, bands, or just your own body weight, is probably the single most underutilized intervention in geriatric medicine. The evidence is overwhelming. Older adults who do regular resistance training maintain muscle mass better, have better bone density, have improved balance, have lower rates of falls, have better metabolic markers, and yes, have better survival outcomes. And it's never too late to start. People in their 70s and 80s respond to training. Muscle can be built, or at least preserved, at any age. The response might be slower than at 25, but it's real. If I could prescribe one thing to every adult over 60, it wouldn't be a medication. It would be consistent, progressive, safe resistance training, combined with adequate protein intake. Since I mentioned protein, let me add this. Many older adults don't eat enough of it. Protein is what your muscles are made of. Without adequate protein, your body can't repair and maintain muscle tissue. And as we age, we actually need more protein than when we were younger, not less, because our bodies become less efficient at using it. The general recommendation for older adults is somewhere around 1 to 1.2 grams of protein per kilogram of body weight per day. For a person weighing 150 pounds, that's roughly 70 to 80 grams of protein daily. Many older adults eat far less than this. Appetite declines with age. Cooking for 1 or 2 people seems less worth the effort. Meat becomes harder to chew, and so protein intake drifts downward, even as needs increase. This isn't a nutrition lecture, so I'll leave it there. But if you're concerned about muscle loss, look at your protein intake. A palm-sized portion of protein at each meal is a reasonable goal. I want to return to something I said earlier. The quiet signals matter. Your body is constantly sending you information. The question is whether you're paying attention and whether you know how to interpret what you're noticing. Weak grip isn't just an inconvenience. It's communication. It's your body telling you that muscle mass is declining, that function is compromised, that reserve is diminishing. The same is true of other quiet changes. Walking more slowly, feeling winded on stairs, needing to rest after minor exertion, having trouble rising from low chairs, avoiding activities you used to do easily. These aren't random annoyances of aging. They're signals, and they're signals that invite a response. You can't control everything about how you age. Genetics matter, past history matters, luck matters, but you have more influence than you might think. And exercising that influence literally can change your trajectory. I've talked about mortality, about falls, about decline. I don't want to leave you feeling frightened or fatalistic. Here's what I want you to take from this. Awareness is the first step. Most people never think about grip strength, never think about sarcopenia, never connect their everyday experiences of weakness to anything meaningful. Now you know. Now you can pay attention differently. Now you can take action. And the action isn't dramatic. It isn't expensive. It isn't time-consuming. It's squeezing a ball while you watch television. It's carrying groceries with intention. It's doing a few wrist curls with a can of beans. These things add up. They compound. They shift the odds in your favor. I've seen patients transform their function through simple, consistent effort. Not dramatically, we're not talking about becoming bodybuilders, but meaningfully, enough to maintain independence longer, enough to walk confidently, enough to play with grandchildren, enough to live fully in the years that remain. That's what this is about. Not living forever, none of us will, but living well for as long as we can. If you've stayed with me this long, I appreciate your attention. I know this has been a lot of information, and some of it might be new to you. Let me leave you with a few final thoughts. Strength is a form of health insurance. You don't notice it when things are going well, but when challenges come, an illness, a fall, a surgery, having that reserve can make all the difference. It's insurance you can build yourself, day by day, through consistent small actions. Pay attention to what your body is telling you. If you notice weakness, don't dismiss it. Don't assume it's just aging. Consider it a signal worth responding to. And remember that it's never too late. I've seen patients start resistance training in their late 70s and improve. The body retains its capacity to adapt, to respond, to grow stronger, maybe not as fast as at 30, but meaningfully. If you found this useful, I'd be grateful if you'd share it with someone who might benefit: a spouse, a sibling, a friend. This isn't information that reaches people through typical medical channels for all the reasons I mentioned, so sharing it matters. And if you have experiences or questions, I genuinely would like to hear them in the comments. What have you noticed about your own strength? What changes have you made, or what challenges have you faced? There's wisdom in this community that goes beyond anything I can offer from my own practice. Thank you for your time today. Take care of yourselves, and take care of your muscles. They're more important than you might have realized.